to Bannockburn, just a few miles from the historic city of Stirling in the heart of Scotland. Most know of Bannockburn because of Robert the Bruce, and when he led the Scots to victory in the glorious Battle of 1314. But there's more to Bannockburn than just medieval history.
Wish I wasn't always the one when you knew that you were right to tonight. Oh, I wish we didn't live in that world, the one that always seemed to hide to him tonight. Yes, I'm sick of you from the side, so quiet while he makes you cry.
This building is a 350-year-old hidden treasure, concealed in a dip in the landscape.
The land that Bannockburn House is situated on is actually one of these fascinating and interesting and actually very, very important locations. The reason for this is that Stirling sits at the lowest crossing point of the Forth, so it's the way an army moves. And this means that the approach to Stirling, which cuts across through Bannockburn House, is actually based on the Roman road. This Roman road's constructed around AD 79, AD 80 by General Agricola, and it's the main infrastructure until the late 18th century. So every army that goes north or south, every army that's resisted north or south, from the Romans to the Jacobites, marches on that road, which means that every significant historical figure in Scottish history has marched through the grounds of Bannockburn House.
When Bannockburn House went up for sale, the community group asked if they could have permission for the people of Bannockburn to see inside this magnificent house.
When the Facebook page got started and we've seen the level of interest, that was the starting point, and when we got the official go-ahead to hold open weekend, we advertised it and we were completely inundated with an interest and inquiries from volunteers and people who wanted to come and visit the house.
Well, my father-in-law told me all about this house when I first got married, and I've always wanted to come and see it, and when I seen it advertised on Facebook, I decided to come and help.
I've always been interested in the house, always been interested in getting involved in something like this, so it's just like a dream come true for me.
We got enormous energy from that, and everybody was buoyant, so we quickly set up a committee, an organisation committee to move it forward. I was myself and the community council and lots of volunteers in that committee. So we met on a weekly basis in the run up to the open weekend, and it all passed off like clockwork, and over the 3 days we had 2,000 visitors, which was an enormous achievement. A lot of logistical difficulties given the Bannockburn House has no dedicated parking, so we had to physically bus everybody from the Trotton Stadium across the road in buses, so the organisation of buses and health and safety. There were significant challenges put there, but the organising committee rose to the challenge very well.
From having just come up and done a wee bit of the cleaning and getting to know the house, looking round it, you get a feel for it, and I just feel, in fact, after the open days, it was quite odd not being able to come up initially because you'd been so used to being here and just going round, and I quite missed it.
Rebecca Dawson is an example of how the open days at Bannockburn House have fired the imagination of local school children. So how did you get interested in the Jacobites?
Well, I became interested in the Jacobites because before the school project started, I had been to Bannockburn House a couple of times to the open days, and I was really interested in it. And then I found out that my new topic was going to be the Jacobites, and I was really excited because I knew a bit about the Jacobites already, but I was really excited to learn new things about the Jacobites, and I've always really been interested in Scottish history and stuff like that. So I decided on the Women of the 45 as the subject for my PowerPoint presentation, and I found out about Clementina Walkinshaw at Bannockburn House, and I started researching it, and there was a lot to learn about it, and I enjoyed learning all the new things, and I enjoyed learning about what the women wore and stuff like that, and all the dresses, because I'm a really big fan of all the fancy dresses.
So name a figure, Agricola, James I, James II, Mary Queen of Scots, Bonnie Prince Charlie, Macbeth. People that are real in Scottish history that are going south or north on foot have to go through the grounds of Bannockburn House.
So that's the real interest in the house, isn't it? Who the owners were, the visitors to the house, and the part that the house played in Scottish history.
Absolutely. Yeah, the local history and the national history, there's no question about it, and the local intrigue. People have driven by this house all their life and never had the opportunity to see it. So I would say it was a mixture of all three, to be honest with you. You had the local intrigue, the local history and national history, as we've seen, because people from all around the country came to see the property.
And would that be because you're a famous visitor here?
No question about it. The Bonnie Prince Charlie connection here has been quite vital, because we had Jacobite groups contacted us the minute that we made it public that we were going to have an open doors weekend. So the Bonnie Prince Charlie dimension was absolutely crucial as well, no question about it.
January 1746, Bonnie Prince Charlie walked through these doors. After a warm greeting from Sir Hugh Patterson, a staunch Jacobite, the Prince probably warmed himself by the fire. After a long march from Derby, he made Bannockburn House his military headquarters. Here he contemplated that disappointing retreat and planned for the forthcoming battle at Falkirk. It was also here that he met up with Sir Hugh Patterson's niece, Clementina Walkinshaw. During the days that followed, 8,000 men, Bonnie Prince Charlie's largest ever force, assembled around the area. Against this backdrop, the romance between Clementina and Charlie blossomed. Several years later, she followed him to France and gave birth to their daughter, Charlotte, the Duchess of Albany, his only child to survive infancy and to survive him. When the time arrived for the prince to command his troops, the 8,000 men began their march towards Falkirk, hopeful that their next engagement would result in victory. Like any young woman in love, Clementina must have feared that she would never see the prince again. However, it proved to be the last successful major engagement of the Jacobite Rising. I like to think that Clementina looked through these windows and over the gardens, and when she saw him next,
her heart would have swelled at his return. It has been remarked that this house is like a time capsule, but I think it's like a book with stories to tell.
It's worth remarking that everything went through Stirling until the Forth Rail Bridge is built. The Forth Rail Bridge is the biggest bridge in the world when it's built. So it takes the biggest bridge in the world to bypass Stirling in terms of its significance to Scotland. And all of that happens. All of those footfalls, all of those people, all of those characters, those stories go through Bannockburn House and its grounds.
All the families who have lived in this house have intriguing stories to tell us, but there's one family in particular who gave us their Scottish cultural identity. And that family is the Wilsons of Bannockburn, the tartan makers.
To learn more about the Wilsons and their tartans, I visited the Smith Art Gallery and Museum in Stirling.
Because of the Disarming Act of 1746 after Culloden, and it was rather harsh. The carrying of arms was forbidden, pistols and swords and so on, but also the weaving and wearing of tartan in the Highlands, and it was banned altogether. So Stirling lost its sword and pistol industry, but at the same time gained another, inasmuch as Stirling and Bannockburn were the first areas which were deemed the lowlands. So Wilsons of Bannockburn started to weave tartan and were able to do so because they weren't in the Highlands, and they set it up on an industrial basis.
This is the old bridge over the famous Bannockburn, the fast-flowing water that powered the mills where the Wilsons created their tartans. Now, a few houses and a small notice are all that remain to mark the location of a once mighty industry. As a small child, my grandmother told me that the burn had run red with blood from the wounds of men who had fought at the Battle of Bannockburn, and later ran red, yellow, blue and green with the dyes from Wilson's mills. I wonder if the younger generation passing here today even know the importance and historical significance of this place.
These are the tartans by William Wilsons and Sons of Bannockburn. It's actually a treat to see them. You can see how vibrant the colours are. There's even a Royal Stuart here, which is quite magnificent in the colours. You can see how different they are to the bright, sort of more garish colours that we get today. And yet these are soft, and if you could feel inside the case, you would feel how much harder the tartans are. Although the Wilsons started their business after the Prince fled, and it was forbidden to wear tartan in the Highlands, the subsequent generation that actually owned this house lived here in the Victorian era. And when the Wilsons did live here, this house was filled with beautiful paintings, trinkets and polished surfaces. And it stayed that way right up to the 1950s. The ceiling in this hall is really quite remarkable. No wonder historians who have recently viewed it called it a national treasure.
For me, just walking through the doors was the highlight of probably my visit, but being involved in the Lakeside project now is just fantastic. Things that really came to light for me were Lakeside plaster ceilings in the lay hall, and also in the dining room, and also the bedrooms. And instantly, we've had that experience through South Scotland. I've only seen one area that within 1 hour monuments that had that. And I went, wow, this is something special. But going there and seeing the likes of the modern extensions and what was there, I mean, that just really just hit a note.
We're in the billiard room. It used to be the dining room, where for the past 50 years there has been no celebration. That is, until the volunteers at Bannockburn House organised our Christmas fair.
One thing that's particularly sad is that in 1970 the house was set on fire, and even though these doors stopped the fire from going any further, the house is still in need of serious renovation.
We're looking at a typical aristocratic building of the 17th century. Now, the reason why Bannockburn House is A-listed is, in effect, a lot of it is left. One of the things about the aristocracy is that they have the money to rebuild, to reinvent. So actually, when that happens, you find that the original 17th, the original 16th century buildings are often gone. They've been pulled down because fashions change, money changes, so people want to update. And just as us, we might redo the wallpaper. In the 18th and 19th centuries, people actually just rebuilt their house. So Bannockburn House has additional wings, has infrastructure added, but actually the core of the house remains the same. And actually the interior of the house, the plaster work, all of which hasn't actually been significantly altered, is why the house is so important, is why the house is A-listed, because in effect it becomes an unfashionable house and stays so. But that's really why it's a rare example, a nationally significant example of a house that actually elsewhere would have been pulled down and replaced.
And you know, going forward, I think we've got a real gem here at Bannockburn, and I think speaking to a lot of people, I think that's their thoughts as well.
In terms of what it could mean for Bannockburn, I really think it will provide something that's missing, because the heart was ripped out of Bannockburn a long time ago. Things were knocked down with absolutely no thought for what was going to be done to the community there.
Tell us how the house will essentially benefit the community.
The house itself will benefit the community because we hope that it will be the heart of the community. Although it lies outside the grounds of Hill Park, Windsor Milton and Bannockburn, it still has a connection to the history of the place. So we want to connect that through certain charities and funding avenues to make the connectivity a lot more easier for cycle routes and even just to walk your dog. But really we want it to be a space that everybody can enjoy.
The town hall, all that kind of thing. The wee shops that are along going towards Quakerfield, I remember them all from my childhood. All of that was knocked down. It's pretty soulless, that part of it. There's no centre. And I think if this house bid is successful, then I think you'll see a whole big kind of revitalisation of the village.
There's great opportunities for employment through the whole project. So this will be in partnership with Historic Environment Scotland to the end use. So there could possibly be a visitor centre that has a cafe, and we would obviously need to man that with local people, because at the end of the day, even if it comes down to the tour guides, these people have to know their heritage and have to be a part of the community, because nobody could fully understand what this is about without it being local people.
It will be a centre, it will be where people can come, and that's really what I hope for it anyway.
Now here's something interesting. In here's a safe. And for years it's never been opened. I wonder what's in it. To keep Bannockburn House safe, in 2016 the community group officially became a trust and gained initial funding to help in their £1 million mission. If successful in buying the house for the community, it is hoped that Bannockburn's future will be enhanced in many ways, including socially and economically, with greater acknowledgement of its historical past. Please support Bannockburn House Trust in its £1 million mission.